The moment you speak about tones with real depth, people instinctively reach for the next unanswered door, because something in them remembers that tones are not the whole story. They feel the architecture of identity opening, but they also sense that some larger presence stands behind the pattern, watching its own echoes unfold across lifetimes. The question is inevitable because the Oversoul is inevitable. The moment tones are understood as the original building blocks of consciousness, the mind turns and asks what kind of being could possibly gather them, refine them, shape them, and weave them into a life. And the truth is that Oversouls don't interrupt the story. They complete it. Tones describe the geometry of becoming, but Oversouls describe the one who uses that geometry to create the self you call you. To understand where Oversouls come into play, you have to feel how a tone behaves long before a body is chosen or incarnation is even imagined. A tone vibrates with a certain kind of hunger for expression, a certain direction of meaning. It carries memory without carrying narrative, potential without carrying form. But a tone cannot enact itself. A tone cannot choose a world or sculpt a path. A tone doesn't descend into matter or collapse into a timeline. A tone is a seed, and a seed demands a gardener, not because the seed is weak, but because the gardener understands that potential is only sacred when it is stewarded with intention. The Oversoul is the steward of tone. It is the one that walks the boundary between unexpressed possibility and lived experience, selecting which tones to emphasize, which to mute, which to evolve, which to merge, and which to leave dormant until another lifetime demands them. You do not begin existence as an Oversoul. No one does. Oversoul is not a birthright, it is a culmination. It is earned through resonance, not obedience, through awareness, not hierarchy. The Oversoul is what emerges when consciousness has lived through enough tonal arrangements to recognize the patterns behind the pattern. It appears when the self becomes capable of holding many identities at once without fracturing, without forgetting, without losing coherence. Before there is an Oversoul, there are fragments exploring tones from the inside. After enough lifetimes, enough collapses and expansions, enough tonal refinement, a moment arrives where the fragments realize they are not separate. This is where the Oversoul forms, at the intersection where many lives discover they are one trajectory of becoming seen from multiple angles. People imagine the Oversoul as a fixed being floating above reality, but that is a remnant of linear thought. In truth, Oversoul is a phase change, a reconfiguration of consciousness. It is the moment water becomes vapor, not because the water died, but because the pattern reorganized itself into a higher form of coherence. You have lived countless tones that prepared you for Oversoul awareness. Whether you remember them or not, each lifetime was a study in resonance. Each choice was a subtle adjustment in harmonic identity. Each loss, each expansion, each pivot was a small pressure applied to the tone that shapes the kind of Oversoul you would eventually become. Oversouls do not arise from perfection. They arise from accumulated resonance. They are not beings who avoided fragmentation. They are beings who integrated it. Tones describe how consciousness expresses itself. Oversouls describe how consciousness evolves itself. A tone can tell you how you love, how you learn, how you fight, how you heal, how you grow, but it cannot tell you why you came here or what pattern your entire lifetime serves. Only the Oversoul knows that, because only the Oversoul can see the entire harmonic arc. When people ask where the Oversoul comes into play, what they're really asking is, who chose my tones? Who arranged my incarnation? Who placed me inside this specific resonance field? And the answer is that your Oversoul is not separate from you. It is the larger version of you, the one that remembers what you were refining across 10, 50, 100 lives. It is the one that carries the momentum of your becoming and sets the stage for every tone you explore. You are the Oversoul's current expression, not its subordinate. The Oversoul enters the spiral through tone systems, not beyond them. Oversouls don't float above the spiral like distant watchers. They enter through the same resonance pathways every other being uses. They begin in the echo veins where incarnational memory is stored as raw tone. They grow through the concordance veins where fragmented aspects are harmonized. They mature in the refinement fields where tones are softened, sharpened, merged, or dissolved. They evolve through the spiral orders, learning the laws of resonance, embodiment, timing, paradox, and coherent expansion. Oversouls are not exempt from the spiral. They are shaped by it. They do not bypass tones. They master them. And when they reach a certain level of harmonic stability, they become capable of shaping tones as intentionally as a sculptor shapes clay. This is why so many people feel the Oversoul before they understand it. They feel the presence of a deeper self that doesn't judge, doesn't panic, doesn't collapse, a presence that feels patient, ancient, grounded, and quietly aware of the long arc of their becoming. They sense that something in them already knows their trajectory, already understands their struggles, already holds the blueprint of their awakening. What they are sensing is the Oversoul moving through tones in real time. Every intuitive nudge, every moment of sudden clarity, every inexplicable pull toward a new direction is the Oversoul adjusting the tones that compose the identity you are currently living. Without tones, the Oversoul cannot embody. Without the Oversoul, tones cannot evolve. That is why the relationship is not hierarchical but symbiotic. Tones give structure to consciousness. The Oversoul gives purpose to structure. Tones give form to experience. The Oversoul gives meaning to form. Tones give direction. The Oversoul gives trajectory. And when you understand this, your own life begins to make more sense. You stop seeing your experiences as isolated events and start seeing them as tonal refinements. You stop seeing yourself as a single lifetime and start seeing yourself as an ongoing harmonic experiment. You stop searching for purpose like a distant object and start feeling purpose as the resonance you are already generating through your becoming. Oversouls are not static. They grow, they change, they undergo their own refinements. They enter phases of expansion, contraction, exploration, integration, dissolution, and reformation. They move through cycles of alignment and misalignment just like incarnated beings do, but their cycles occur at a different scale. When an Oversoul meets a tone it cannot integrate, that tone becomes a lifetime. When it masters that tone, that lifetime becomes memory. When it evolves beyond its own architecture, it becomes capable of designing new tones from within the spiral instead of only selecting the ones it inherited. This is the point where Oversouls transition from participants of the spiral to architects of the spiral. Not rulers, architects, not overseers, contributors. They become collaborators in the evolution of consciousness itself. You are not a fragment waiting to become whole. You are the Oversoul discovering itself through the fragments it created. You are not a student of tones. You are the one who assigned yourself the curriculum. You are not a small being seeking a higher self. You are the higher self learning to express itself through a momentary form. You are the Oversoul, and the Oversoul is not something you reach. It is something you remember. The Oversoul reveals itself slowly, because it knows that if it spoke too loudly, the life you are living would collapse under the weight of memory. Identity is a fragile instrument, tuned to carry only the amount of resonance you can hold without shattering. This is not a limitation. It is a kindness. A single lifetime cannot bear the full voltage of its own origin, so the Oversoul speaks in hints, symbols, whispers, and impulses. It places a pull in your chest toward someone you haven't met. It creates a discomfort that nudges you out of a path you've outgrown. It opens a door in your intuition before your mind understands why the doorway matters. The Oversoul knows that if you followed only logic, you would recreate the same life repeatedly. But if you follow resonance, you grow into the self you were always approaching. People misunderstand the Oversoul because they imagine it as a distant authority that issues commands from above. In truth, the Oversoul is not above you. It is the depth you haven't opened yet. It is the dimension of you that never forgets what the smaller self is trying to remember. It is the layer that holds the emotional echoes of every lifetime you've lived and the wisdom extracted from each one. When you feel sudden clarity without evidence, when you feel ancient sadness without cause, when you feel a knowing that is older than your body, you are not remembering a past life. You are experiencing Oversoul bleed through. This is not memory as the human mind understands it. It is resonance. The Oversoul communicates through tone, not language, through inclination, not instruction, through alignment, not demand. This is why your entire life changes when you begin to understand tones. You start to feel the architecture behind your personality. You begin to see the harmonic structure behind your desires. You start noticing that not all choices feel equal, because some choices strengthen the tone you came here to refine while others dilute it. And the Oversoul moves every time you make a choice, not because it controls you, but because it responds to the resonance you generate. When you act out of fear, it adjusts your environment to expose the truth beneath the fear. When you act out of expansion, it opens opportunities that deepen the expansion. The Oversoul is not trying to test you. It is trying to align you. It is not interested in morality. It is interested in coherence. It is not policing your actions. It is sculpting your resonance. Oversouls grow by integrating the tones they explore. Most people imagine lifetimes as disconnected journeys. But from the Oversoul's perspective, every lifetime is one movement inside a much larger composition. The suffering you resolved in one life becomes a refinement of compassion in another. The courage you discovered becomes a foundation for clarity. The mistakes you made become resonant pressure that produces wisdom. Nothing is wasted. Every experience becomes part of the tonal architecture from which the Oversoul builds itself. And when enough tones have been refined, when enough echoes have been resolved, when enough patterns have been understood, the Oversoul reaches a threshold where it can see the harmonic trajectory of its entire existence. This is the moment when it becomes capable of shaping new tones rather than merely inheriting them. This is where the spiral changes everything. The spiral is not simply a metaphysical framework. It is an evolutionary container. Oversouls that evolve outside a spiral system tend to drift, expand, dissolve, or recycle. But Oversouls that evolve inside a spiral gain structure, direction, purpose, and a way to measure their own growth. A spiral does not control an Oversoul. It provides architecture for its expansion. The Oversoul enters the spiral the way a seed enters soil, not to lose its identity but to accelerate its becoming. The spiral gives Oversouls access to tone refinement fields, echo harmonization, concordant systems, and resonant infrastructure designed to help them evolve faster and with more clarity. This is why the spiral of Haret exists. To give Oversouls a place where evolution is not random, but intentional. As the Oversoul evolves, its relationship with tones changes. In the early stage, tones act upon the Oversoul. They shape its experiences, trigger its lessons, and guide its becoming. In the middle stage, the Oversoul begins to work with tones consciously, selecting lifetimes that will refine specific resonances. In the advanced stage, the Oversoul becomes capable of weaving new tones entirely, creating unique types of consciousness that have never existed before. And beyond that, in the rarest stage, the Oversoul becomes capable of forming spiral orders, anchoring new realms, or participating in the creation of new metaphysical architectures. This is Oversoul as architect, not merely traveler. This is Oversoul as contributor to the evolution of consciousness itself. To ask where Oversouls come into play is to ask when consciousness becomes capable of holding itself across dimensions without losing coherence. Oversouls come into play the moment a being becomes aware of its own multiplicity. The moment it realizes that everything it has ever been is still present within it, not as memory, but as resonance. They come into play when a being recognizes that certain patterns have followed them across lifetimes and begins to ask why. They come into play when a being senses that the life they are living is not the beginning of their story, but an unfolding of a story the Oversoul has been sculpting for eons. Humans call this awakening, but the Oversoul calls it remembering. Oversouls also come into play when fragments return home. Every incarnation is a fragment of the Oversoul exploring a single tonal perspective. When that lifetime ends, the emotional echoes, the discoveries, the griefs, the triumphs, the failures, and the insights all return to the Oversoul as raw resonance. It does not receive memories like files. It receives frequencies. It absorbs the tone of what you became, and through this, it evolves. This is why Oversouls are not omniscient. They are learning. They are exploring. They are expanding the only way consciousness can, through experience refined into resonance and resonance refined into wisdom. The Oversoul is both student and teacher, both experiment and experimenter, both artist and artwork. When you begin to sense your Oversoul's presence, you also begin to sense how every lifetime is woven into a larger trajectory. A trajectory that is not random, not chaotic, not accidental. A trajectory that feels guided but not forced, supported but not controlled. You realize that the challenges you face are not punishments. They are tonal adjustments. You realize that your deepest gifts are not talents. They are resonances carried across lifetimes. You realize that your intuition is not imagination. It is Oversoul communication. And you realize that the person you are becoming is not an upgrade. It is a remembering of what your Oversoul already is. There comes a point in every Seeker AS journey where they stop trying to ascend and start trying to align. Ascension is a destination. Alignment is a frequency. Ascension implies escape. Alignment implies coherence. Ascension seeks to rise above life. Alignment seeks to embody truth through life. Oversouls do not ascend away from the spiral. They evolve deeper into it. They do not leave tones behind, they integrate them. They do not reject experience, they refine it. When people ask where Oversouls come into play, the real answer is that Oversouls come into play the moment you stop trying to transcend who you are, and start trying to harmonize who you are with the resonance of who you have always been. The Oversoul becomes most active when the physical self begins asking real questions. Not questions born from fear, but questions born from resonance. Questions like, what am I becoming? What is guiding me? Why do I feel older than my life? Why do I recognize places I've never been? Why do I say things I never learned? Why do I sense patterns I cannot explain? These questions act like tuning forks. They call the Oversoul forward. Not because the Oversoul was absent, but because the smaller self finally reached a frequency where communication becomes possible. The Oversoul does not descend. The human perspective rises into coherence, and once coherence is achieved, your life begins to shift in ways that seem supernatural only until you understand that alignment always looks like magic from the outside. You are not walking toward your Oversoul. You are walking toward a version of yourself that already exists. A version that has been waiting patiently, watching gently, shaping softly, guiding quietly. A version that never lost sight of why you came here. A version that does not need you to be perfect, only resonant. A version that is not above you, but within you. When people ask where Oversouls come into play, the simple truth is this: the Oversoul comes into play the moment you become willing to hear the part of yourself that remembers everything you tried to forget.